I'll be going to AOM Seattle. I have 3 presentations and I'm getting a best symposium prize also. Yay, from the MED division. So quite excited. But thank you. But
Congratulations
you're
on that.
absolutely, thank you so much. But you're
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. Hi everyone, my name is Anita and I'm extremely excited to welcome Professor Payal Kumar, who is the Dean of Management Studies and Research at the Indian School of Hospitality, Gurgaon. This is going to be our second interaction with her, and in her first interaction with the Inkpothub team, we got to know about her research journey, which she started from XLRI Jamshedpur, and post that she has written 12 papers, post that she has written 12 books and a lot of research papers, and based on her experience of reviewing, editing, and writing, this interaction is all around the traps which a researcher experience while writing research papers. I welcome Professor Payal Kumar and I would request her to share her research experiences in terms of understanding these kind of traps, because she is the one who, based on her experience, can share a lot from the reviewer and editors and writers perspective. Professor Payal Kumar, I welcome you on Inkpothub Media once again. So we were talking in our informal conversation about different kind of traps which students and early researchers and young faculties experience. I would like to know about those traps, and maybe we can have a follow-up, Q&A around these. Whatever thoughts will come to my mind, I will ask you later after your presentation. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, it's a great privilege, Dr. Anita Sharma. Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. So I am a senior reviewer for many leading, A category journals, including Journal of Organizational Behavior, Personal Psychology. So I keep interacting with a lot of reviewers also. And, over the years, I've started seeing that there are certain trends, which a lot of doctoral scholars seem to constantly fall into, traps. So, and even while going through the doctoral journey, there's various things, mistakes that everybody makes. But problem is that everybody then keeps, the next batch makes that same mistake. So I thought it'd be very nice to talk about what are the traps that one can avoid. Even I've made a few mistakes in the doctoral journey, so it's good if people can learn from it, right? Why not? So hence I thought this would be a good topic to talk about. So I was earlier vice president at Sage Publication, looking after the editorial and production. So I have the publisher's angle, I have the reviewer's angle, and then obviously I'm a published author myself, so I can, talk about various things. So this is what I thought it would be a good thing to talk about: 7 publishing traps to avoid when we are publishing our papers. And I hope it's useful for doctoral scholars and early career researchers. So first of all is weak writing. So I've quoted here an editorial written by Professor Betty Rose Raggins, who's very well known. She wrote this in the AMR. So she herself has said, foggy writing, your ideas need to be clear. So you don't have to write in a bombastic manner. That's a very wrong concept. It's a myth. You don't have to write very long words. The point is that the readership has to understand what you're saying. So the flow of language is more important than using, big adjectives. Don't introduce too many concepts and jargon. So while you need to define your main variables, of course, but not too many. So some people go into pages and pages of definitions in their journal paper. So her third point is some papers have no thread and tell no story. So you do have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then also talk about why your paper is of value. So not only to answer the so what, not only to answer, so you have to answer the so what question, which means that, why have you done this piece of research? Who is it valuable for? Is it valuable for the scholarly community or for the practitioners or for both? Have you contributed to theory or not, right? The fourth point, she says, that some authors don't get to the point until many pages into the text. So again, one has to follow the pivot style when you write the introduction of your paper to get to the hook. So just in about a few paragraphs, you have to write about why this topic is important. What are the broad research which has taken place over here? There you can use string citations. The scholars have said this, and use string citations to show the area. And then you come down to, but perhaps this area is not covered, and these are the research questions. So it has to lead like this, right? You have a separate literature review section where you go into much more detail. So you need to hook the reader. And when I say reader, I mean also the peer reviewer, right? You need to hook them quite early on that this is a really fundamental piece of research. So do read this article if you ever get the time. So weak writing. The other thing is, I find a lot of doctoral scholars, they frame a very complex research question. It's difficult to understand exactly what they're doing. So here I always recommend to my doctoral scholars that you need to pass the MOM test. In other words, explain your research question or what you're framing to your mother, somebody who's non-academic, like who's not into academics, and explain it to them in layman's terminology. And that is your research question, which you can then put into a little bit of academic terminology. So get through the MOMS test, rather than making things too complicated and too bombastic. Third, again, this as a reviewer, I find this so many times, I can't even tell you. A lot of Indian scholars and South Asian scholars tend to think that unsupported hypothesis is a terrible thing. But it's okay, like in somebody's thesis, if you have X amount of hypotheses, not all of them are going to be supported. That's understood, right, by the scholarly community, and even in your research papers. So I see in the discussion section, a lot of scholars, they will talk in detail about the ones that have been supported, but they'll just gloss over the ones which have not been supported. Now, I actually feel unsupported hypothesis is an opportunity to show your scholarship in a different way. So if you remember the very famous study of Hawthorne's experiment, in which the hypothesis was something to do about, if the lighting increases in the factory, then it will lead to productivity increasing. So it was not supported. They found if they increase the lighting or decrease the lighting, the productivity went up, which is kind of a weird finding, right? But they came up with such a good explanation, which was that the workers are social beings, and it was the fact that there were observers sitting with them, researchers sitting with them for a few months, going through whatever they do, and they felt very much recognized and wanted, and that is what led to the increase in productivity. So while it was not supported, they came up with a very good explanation. So when you have unsupported hypothesis, go back to literature, say that I had expected X would lead to Y. It has not done so, perhaps because of so-and-so theory, so let's not just gloss over it. I see this so many times, Late journal search. Now, this is a trap that I fell into as a doctoral scholar. So I spent about a year and a half with my professor doing research on a particular topic. And then towards the end of that year and a half, we started searching for a journal, right? Like, which is the most appropriate to go into. Now, this is a big no-no. You should start, the day you come up with your research question, you should start looking at journals and shortlisting them. I'll explain in the next slide, how to fit it with the correct journal. But start shortlisting, say 5 journals, and then as you go throughout you've done your data collection, then you might, say that, okay, these 3 journals seem to be good. And when you start writing up your paper, you should have the one shortlisted paper in mind, because it's very important to write according to the journal's, norms. And I don't just mean the journals, like they say APA style and Times New Roman 12 points. But I also mean, look at published papers in that journal. How do people, maybe they spend a lot more time on discussion in that particular journal, or they spend more time on empirical research on the methodology. So you need to start writing exactly as a lot of the authors have already written in that journal. Okay, so therefore you need to start searching for your journal much beforehand. And the perfect way to find a journal is a keyword search. Do make sure that the journals you finally shortlisted, do a keyword search and make sure that there are papers in that area, right? So say I'm doing a paper on sense making and sense giving, and I do a search, and if I don't find any paper in that area in that journal, do not go for that journal, right? Go for another journal. And in the other journal where you find papers like that, do cite them also. So it shows that you're continuing the chatter, you're continuing the conversation, right, of the previous scholars. So how do you find the perfect journal? It is so important to get that paper journal fit. I mean, I think that's one of the most crucial things. So again, the mistake which is made is people at times send the paper to the wrong journal. So if it's a qualitative journal, they'll send it to a quantitative, or if it's a journal that says we take multidisciplinary, topics, but you only send it with one topic. So obviously it's going to be desk rejected, right? So you got to get that fit. The closer the paper journal fit, the more chances are of getting publication. It's as simple as that. So spend some time researching your actual journal. Is it obviously go for a peer-reviewed journal? Who is the journal's audience? Look at the aims and scope, which will tell you who is the readership. Does it fit or it does not fit? If it doesn't fit, please go for another journal. Also, if you're a doctoral scholar, find out, you can write to the chief editor, what's the average time to print, because doctoral scholars are in a rush to publish X amount of papers before they finish the actual doctoral, right? So that also they need to know. Sixth mistake, I find a lot of scholars give up after rejection. I mean, but that's part of the game. If you look at the pie chart, most papers are rejected in the first go, or they're given an R&R, revise and resubmit. It could be minor or major. That's part of the game. Very few are accepted in the first go, which is the green portion. So you can see the cartoon on the right, wow, a list of possible journals. He says, no, it's a list of journals that rejected our article. So the point is, don't give up, right? Revise again, resubmit, to another journal and keep at it. It's iterative. If you're expecting, and some reviewers can be a bit harsh, and I think we in India, we tend to take things a little bit personally. So they're not commenting on you, right? They're commenting on your work. And if a peer review has taken time to come up with comments, that means they have read your paper, they feel there's some potential in it. That's why they've spent all that time, unpaid labor for a reviewer, isn't it? To give you guidance. So please don't give up. Rejection is part of the game. There is first a desk reviewer who looks at it to see whether your journal fits into the aims and scope of the paper. If it doesn't fit the journal, she will immediately say this is not suitable. And only then it goes to the external, the peer reviewers. So my last point is, please do not indulge in unethical behavior. So, resubmission of rejected manuscripts without revision is kind of unethical. So say you've been rejected by one journal and they wanted APA style, and then you got a rejection and you submit it to another journal and and it's got a different style, Chicago manuscript. You've not bothered to change the style. You've not bothered to look at their aims and scope. You've not bothered to look at what is their structure of writing in terms of framing a paper. So the reviewers pick it up very quickly that, oh, this paper's probably been rejected from somewhere else, right? So you need to redo your paper in many ways, including writing, when you resubmit to another journal. Failure to cite previous research, this is plagiarism. If you don't cite, say you've taken somebody's idea, put it in your paper, but you've not cited, then that's outright plagiarism. Even your own works, if you fail to cite your own work, so you have to, that's self-plagiarism. you have to treat your own previously published works as if it's an independent author's work. So if I've done something, I will say, Kumar 2019, right? So that's about it. I'm just finishing with a quick true and false quiz. A citation is a way of giving credit for someone's work, true. A missing citation is equivalent to plagiarism, true. Focus discussion on one should focus discussion on supported thesis only, false. You can send your paper to 2 journals at a time, false. And a research question must be so complex that nobody can understand it, false. And that's it. I'm happy, if after this session, if anybody has further questions, they can always contact me on my email. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I have noted down a couple of things. So I would like to ask you the question which came to my mind. Can we just take the screen sharing?
Sure.
Huh.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So the first question, which after hearing from you, comes to my mind, which I often get questions as founder of Inkpothub, what to do when we have publication options in paid journals. So majority of the finance journals or top journals are charging some publication fees. So how to go
Open
about
access.
it? Yes. How to go about it?
Open access. So, there are some false journals in open access, so you need to be careful. What we call predatory journals, right? Where they charge, it's not even a publishing house. It's just somebody sitting in a room converting your paper to a PDF and uploading it, and they charge a lot of money. That is why UGC have come up with a UGC list of journals, isn't it? Because of this problem of predatory journals. But your well-known publishers, Emerald, Sage, Routledge, if they have open access, then that's bona fide, and there is a peer review. But the people who are not bona fide, they don't even do a peer review. They just take your money and they upload it, right? So that's not, you have to be careful about that. But yeah, the point of open access is that, research work should be freely available to everybody, even to, say, an African university that doesn't have much funds for getting in books and journals. I mean, why should the scholars there suffer? Because the beginning of your research starts with the literature review if you don't even have access to the literature. So it started off as a very ideological movement, open access. So instead of the traditional model, where in the traditional model, the university library, they subscribe, isn't it? It is university subscriptions usually. But in this model, the person that pays is the professor, meaning you get asked for some university funds. But they usually turn out to be very expensive, so especially for Indian authors. So, I mean, if there's any publisher listening, I would honestly request that you keep different variation of prices for Southeast emerging, or any other emerging nation. It should not be such a high price, I feel.
Okay. So let's go back to your 7 points. You talked about unsupported hypothesis, and which is a very interesting point. When the hypotheses are not supported, and we always believe that if it is not supported, then there is some lacuna in our research. But on the other hand, you mentioned that this gives you more insights and more different kind of perspectives, maybe different kind of lens to see things differently.
Exactly.
Is it not impacted by weak writing? Because sometimes people are not able to write the opposite side or the contrary answers.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be. It could be. Number one, I think we take it very personally that, oh my God, it's unsupported, so let's just kind of gloss over this. Let's just keep quiet about it. But the other thing is, yes, it could be that, but what I would suggest is go back to literature, look at other people's writings, keep reading. I mean, if you're a doctoral scholar, I would suggest read 3 papers a day throughout your doctoral journey as a habit, like brushing your teeth. Otherwise, we're always busy, right? You have to read 3 papers a day. Because then what happens imperceptibly over the years, you start understanding the writing technique. Your language may not be that strong in terms of English, but you honestly, trust me, you start understanding how do people argue a case. Journal writing is a lot about arguing a case like a lawyer, isn't it? So you start understanding that. And regarding English, you can always give your paper to a copy editor. Copy editors in India are not very expensive at all, who can clean up your manuscript and help you get your citations and references sorted out, But the ideation of writing, that can only come by reading as much as you can. When I say reading, I mean A grade and B grade journals, yeah.
Okay. I have one more question regarding this MOMS test, because you shared that you need to speak to somebody who is not aware of the topic or the concept or don't understand the language of research. So when we speak with them, we get to know the understanding about the research questions in a deeper sense. There is always one more concern which people have, is that when we discuss these research topics and research questions with similar peer group, there's a chance of stealing. So how to handle that?
Yeah, I agree. Don't share with your similar peer group, not your competitors. I mean, share with somebody, say a family or a neighbor who's not in academics, right? And tell them about your study. So even framing an abstract, it should pass the MOMS test. Or another way of looking at it is, let's imagine you're talking to somebody across a very busy street. It's very noisy traffic. So you can only say a few things to get them to understand, right? It's very difficult to frame an abstract also, isn't it? Just in 250 words or something, you have to summarize your whole this thing. So imagine you're talking to somebody in a very busy street, or talk to your neighbor or your sister or somebody who's not in academics, and when you're explaining it to them, it'll get clear in your mind also. So this is what my research is about. This is my research question. You have to say it in layman's terms. When you're saying it in layman's terms, it gets clearer in your mind. Then you can go to your computer and then type it up, hopefully in a scholarly manner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So yeah, best not to share with competitors, but with somebody out of academics. It'll help you get more clarity. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense. So I have one more question to you, which is not related directly with these 7 traps. Something which I often get, and I want to hear from you because you have that expertise.
Sure.
So when we talk about research topics and on which area, on which domain we should go about pursuing our research, so I often answer in a way when the students are really confused. So I say that go and check the conferences which are upcoming conferences, because they give you themes, and based on these themes you can figure out, like in another 2-3 years these papers will be published somewhere, because based on themes we write, and these papers are going to be published eventually. So for instance, the Academy of Management this year, the theme is very interesting. So creating a better world together. It means that the papers sent to this particular conference will have an impact of the theme itself, and will also have a chance to get a publication done in the coming times, or maybe in 2-3 years. So what is your observation, or what is your take on that? Is it
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
absolutely right. Very good advice. I'll be going to AOM Seattle. I have 3 presentations, and I'm getting a best symposium prize also. Yay, from the MED division. So quite excited. But thank you.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. But you're absolutely right. If somebody's stuck on a topic, conference, because what happens is your leading scholars, they often, do a paper kind of in draft or in progress, send it to AOM or, BAM, British Academy of Management, and big conferences. So there you get feedback, right, from the audience. You have to answer questions straight away. So you get live feedback. So that really helps you then come up with an A-grade paper in the end, right? So a lot of scholars do that. They first send it out to conferences. So you're right. That's one way of looking at it. But the other thing I would suggest, Anita, is somebody stuck with what topic to look at future areas of research in papers. A lot of papers end with future areas of research. So just take the last 1 year, look at 50, 60 papers, and I'm sure you'll get some, wonderful ideas from there. That's another way.
Okay. So summing up, like 2 ways here to find out a potential research topic: look for the conferences, and also look for the future research section in research
Absolutely.
papers. Okay.
And also, I mean, I keep listening to, scholarly discussions and, so keep registering for that. A lot of them keep coming to us from the AOM listservs, so keep listening to them. Then suddenly some idea pops in your mind when you're hearing people talk about certain subject, yeah?
Makes sense. So, my one last question to you on this entire presentation.
Sure.
How to handle rejections?
Don't take it personally. I mean, I've met doctoral scholars. I do this academic writing workshop around the country. I think I would have done it for about 4,000 scholars up to now in various places, NIT, IITs, IIMs. And, in the tea break, they'll come and say, ma'am, I got rejected, so I'm stopping research now. I'm like, what are you saying? I mean, you don't stop research. I mean, rejection is part of the game, right? So I would definitely recommend they read Wendy Belcher. There's a book she's written about how to produce your journal article in 12 weeks, something like that, Wendy Belcher. So in there, she's given examples of her doctoral scholars and how they've, faced rejection. One particular scholar she had, he got rejected about 17, 18 times, but he believed in his research so much, he kept on and on working on the paper, and eventually got published in an A grade. So this is a game of resilience, and like I said earlier, please understand, I've just finished a review for JOB. I've seen some reviewers who, if the paper is 12 pages, they've given 16 pages of review, so if a reviewer puts in so much effort and time, then they're obviously seeing some, diamond over there, right, in your work. It just has to be polished, okay? So don't forget, we reviewers, we read a paper 2-3 times before we start reviewing it. As I said, it's unpaid labor. It's the labor of love. It's us mentoring, other scholars. So take it as a positive. If the desk editor has not rejected you, it's gone into peer review. So that's one hurdle crossed already. Then if the peer reviewers come back to you and give you an R&R, so that's great, right? So you've got to revise and resubmit, which says, we see some potential in this paper. It could be a minor R&R, which is fantastic, or it could be major. Rework it, go back to literature, look at your data, rework it again. And it's part of the journey. This is not a rush job, right? Research takes years, publishing takes years. Do one paper, send it to a journal, and then start on your next piece of research. That's what I do. Forget about that one. It'll take its own time and go on to your next piece of research. So don't take it personally. You've got to be resilient. That's exactly what I would recommend.
Okay, so what is your current area of work these days, research?
Oh, don't even ask. So I'm working on 5 books at the moment with various scholars. 4 of them are edited books and one of them is a monograph. I'm working with professors in Canada, America, France, and India. So there's a lot going on. And like I said, AOM is around the corner. And I've just submitted a paper on Gen Y in India and employer branding. So let's see where that goes. So I do a lot of India studies also, because I think perspectives here can be quite different. And my PhD area was mentoring, so I've done a lot of work on mentoring also. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking your time out and having this conversation. It was enlightening, and it was very delightful to have you once again on Inkpothub Media. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the platform. I appreciate it, Dr. Anita. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
It's great to see you all here. Thank you for watching our work. If you have not subscribed to Inkpothub Media, then please hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel and support research celebrations in India.